Good afternoon, everybody. It is currently 4:11 p.m. and let's get right into it. Welcome to episode number 8 of Mic'd Up. First, I want to start off with a formal apology. I know it's been a couple weeks since an episode has come out, but regardless, trying to put my all into it. A lot of stuff going on, but we're back. Regardless, got lots of sports news to talk about. Only football, pretty much. I know, I try to be as versatile when it comes to talking about sports and whatnot, but I think football is just so broad and there's so much to talk about now with football that, it's hard to fit anything else in. But regardless, let's get right into it. We're going to start off with college football, and let's just talk about week 4. I mean, it was just, I wouldn't say a lackluster week to say, but I mean, there wasn't that many crazy headlines as, we may have coming into week 5. But we are going to go into a review of week 4. Miami, they are looking troublesome. They struggled a little bit against Florida. I know that it was about, 13 to 7 around the fourth quarter, around that somewhere around that score. Going into the fourth quarter, Miami ends up pulling away with the win, obviously, against Florida. College Game Day was there for that game. Just missed College Game Day by a week. I don't think I've had an episode yet since, oh my gosh, yeah. As you may know, a couple weeks ago, I haven't had an episode since the USF Miami game. But as you know, a couple weeks ago, I was in Miami actually for the USF Miami game. Clearly, wasn't a pleasant experience as much as the game. But the tailgate scene, pregame scene, that was nice. That was good to be around. Hopefully, try and get into more atmospheres like that. I know that USF had South Carolina State this past weekend in week 4. Completely blew them out of the water as expected. South Carolina State is I know I checked their division. They're part of some, I want to say FCS school. They're not, they're obviously D1. I'd have to go ahead and assume, but clearly not a team that anyone would have to worry about. Anyone that would have to create some out-of-pocket crazy game plan for. But besides straying away from the topic at hand, obviously Miami got some things to sort out. They still looked, solid in some aspects. Clearly towards the end of the game as they pulled more away from Florida towards the end, it was looked a lot cleaner. But, still some things. They don't want to start off slow, especially not against FSU in a couple weeks. They do have a bye week going into week 5. No headlines from them. They're not playing any crappy Ivy League Group of 5 school, but they do have FSU in a couple weeks in Tallahassee. Tommy Castellanos, it's going to be a hostile environment. Ask Ty Simpson in the Tide. We'll talk about the Tide later. But regardless, we got them in week 6, the Seminoles and Miami, and I looked at the rest of the games for that week, and college football definitely going to be there. College Game Day is definitely going to be in Tallahassee for week 6. Count on it. Would honestly try and see if I can go to that. That would be an exciting game to go to. And some more headlines. Indiana. Everybody thought they kind of went away after, being a first-round exit to Notre Dame last year in the college football playoff. We all remember that game in South Bend against the Irish. Not South Bend, yeah. Against South Bend. Or in South Bend against the Irish. Marcus Freeman, that was a crazy team. Everybody thought they disappeared. They come out, and they end up destroying. It was about... what was the score? Was it 63-10 against the Illini? Yeah, everybody, had Illinois in that game. I am going to be 100% honest. I believe I did too. But, there's something about Indiana, that the coach down there, he's clearly got his guys set out for him. I haven't looked too much into him. I remember, his name was popping around a lot last year as Indiana was kind of narrowing their and kind of silencing their haters, being able to clinch a playoff spot despite not winning. That was a generational Notre Dame team with Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love and Marcus Freeman and company. Regardless, Illinois got put to sleep. Nearly got knocked off top 25. They were number 9, and now they're 23. That is very unfortunate for the boys there. Everybody's kind of see Illinois as this emerging power in the Big Ten. Hadn't really played anybody. They played Duke, struggled to them early, but then ended up pulling away. Covered that, obviously. I did pick Illinois in that game, so I'm not a complete hater of the Illini, but clearly not built for the big lights quite yet, especially not in the Big Ten. losing that game, losing an interconference game against the Hoosiers. We'll talk about Illinois more going into Week 5. They have an interesting headline. Indiana, I believe, too. They play a good game. No, I don't think so. I think it's just Illinois. Illinois plays. We'll look into it later. Okay. And let's talk about Oklahoma. Let's talk about the Sooners, and let's talk about John Mateer and the guys there in Norman. Yeah. Let's talk about the guys in Norman, the Sooners of Oklahoma. John Mateer coming in the season. I remember, I think it was episode 2 or 3, 4, something like that. I had talked about John Mateer being like, I've seen SEC Media Day and all this stuff. I'm seeing all these reporters say stuff about John Mateer. John Mateer Heisman this, John Mateer Heisman that. Have him in a conversation for the Heisman quite a bit. Obviously Arch Manning and whatnot. His rival starting quarterback over there in Austin for the Longhorns. And I was kind of confused, but now John Mateer, this dude is lighting up teams. Just did escape the Tigers of Auburn, but despite the win, did have an injury. I believe it was his throwing hand injury. It will keep him out for at least a month, and they play a hefty amount of teams going into the next month. They play Kent State, obviously not really a hefty opponent, just got absolutely blown out of the water by the Seminoles, and Tommy Castellanos and the guys. Mekhi Danzy, obviously he's a stud, kind of the mismatch guy they have down there. I wouldn't say Swiss Army knife, but more of like a, kind of last-ditch effort type of ordeal there. But they play, despite, talking about Florida State and glazing the shit out of Tommy Castellanos and Mike Norvell and those guys, they play, get this, they play Texas, South Carolina. I believe they play at South Carolina, and they play Ole Miss, but they play Ole Miss at home, I believe. Obviously, that's going to, without John Mateer, it's really going to be interesting to see how they play without such a guy like him. I know he's pretty much their entire team for the most part. It's going to be interesting to see how they play without him. I expect them to drop to Texas and Ole Miss, because Ole Miss has been proving great. They held John Retzloff in Tulane, beat the shit out of the boys there. It was about 45-10, I believe, this actual past week against Tulane, the Green Wave. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's obviously a great coach, but he just finds his ways to win these certain games. And I think with Oklahoma and the way that they're kind of revolved around John Mateer, it's going to be interesting to see how they play this next month against, opponents like Texas and Ole Miss. I think they'll be fine against South Carolina and Lenore Sellers, because Lenore Sellers has been looking rough as lately. I know that he struggled to Missouri. Missouri ends up getting the win there. I believe that game was actually played at South Carolina too. I don't believe that was in Missouri, but Lenore Sellers and the guys are struggling clearly. Obviously, he was expected to be a great quarterback, and he showed that last year. I don't think I've talked about, when we talked about Notre Dame earlier, there was also another headline. What's up with Texas A&M? Texas A&M looks good. They just beat Notre Dame. Obviously, it's interesting to see how Notre Dame's playing. They're 1-2, and they're still ranked. I know that you got a similar team like Clemson. They're 1-3 unranked, but they're losing. They lost 3 games compared to 2. Notre Dame, they played Texas A&M, and they played Miami in Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. So it'll be, obviously, there's a different aspect to how they lose, and it was both close games. It's not like Clemson where you're getting blown out by Syracuse, which is where I'm going to lead us next. But Notre Dame still has something to prove. Obviously, Marcus Freeman and C.J. Carr, Jeremiah Love, they're still kind of showing a little bit of fight despite being the losers of these games, of these closer games. They just got to figure out how to kind of do it. I know that Notre Dame beat themselves up really against Texas A&M. It's kind of just self-inflicted wounds that lost in that game. So they just have to correct on their own mistakes, need to stop generating the mistakes, and they can start winning these great games, kind of get back into the conversation, the playoff conversation. I know that they're not quite out of it yet. I think the only team that's really out of it is Clemson, obviously, and that's where I'm going to lead us next. Clemson, what are we doing? They lose to Georgia Tech. They lose to Syracuse this past week, 34-21. And it really makes you wonder what's going on. And Dabo Swinney, I know that he had an embarrassing interview talking about, oh, we might lay an egg, go 6-6. And trust me, I'm no player of any stature. I am no athlete. I'm no person that could speak on whether or not or what a coach should or should not say or how their game plan looks. Trust me, I'm not an accredited coaching official. But, I mean, Dabo Swinney currently has the mindset of, he kind of expected this. And that is not a good mindset to have. And clearly it is reflecting in the locker room. It is reflecting on the team because they are struggling immensely, losing to teams like Georgia Tech. But Georgia Tech is a great team, don't get me wrong. Georgia Tech's a great team. Expect them to make more noise even in the ACC. But regardless, losing to a team like Syracuse, who has also shown a little bit of fight against people like Tennessee, losing to an unranked opponent, having such high expectations with Cade Klubnik, he's clearly shown struggle. It clearly kind of reflects in Dabo Swinney. I think Dabo Swinney is just kind of like the scapegoat to all this. Like, he is the one that is always getting kind of getting bashed for all this. I don't know if scapegoat would be the proper word for it, but regardless, Dabo Swinney is getting bashed, obviously for what he said, and I mean rightfully so. I mean, you don't just tell fans that fans are like, what's going on, and you're over here saying the expectation is to lay an egg, go 6-6, be a mediocre team, a mid team. And a lot of people are saying fire him, but regardless, I think Dabo Swinney kind of just put Clemson on the map. Before he came there, Clemson was nothing. So it really just kind of, you have to step back and you kind of have to take another look at Dabo Swinney and how he kind of operates. And there's clearly some things he has to work on, obviously. But I believe that, Clemson, I don't know. I think Clemson's regime is kind of falling down. It's kind of like the fall of Rome, I'd say, in a way. Not as much, them as much as Bama, because Bama was such a great program. We'll talk about the fall of the actual Rome later, but regardless, there's a lot of stuff to figure out in Clemson. It's going to be keep your eyes on them. I think that the struggles have just kind of began. I don't think they've ended this season. ACC, they still have to play. I believe they still have to play FSU. I believe they still have to play Miami. They're going to feel it this year, trust me. But regardless, we're going to go into the Big 12. Huge matchup in Salt Lake City. I believe it was in Salt Lake City. Utah gets completely destroyed by Texas Tech, and now Texas Tech is looking like a contender for the Big 12. And it's really interesting. See, Texas Tech is like, especially since the 12-team college football playoff has kind of came into the picture, and even before then, with teams like TCU, Texas Tech is I like this team. I like their storyline. I kind of like this, they're going to be one of those teams that a lot of people are going to be developing this theme of a Cinderella story for when it comes to the college football playoff. And I'm really rooting for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. It was either them or they're Utah. I've always liked Utah, especially since they kind of came onto the scene, made some noise against Ohio State in the 2022 Rose Bowl game. I've liked Utah, but obviously, that whole Cam Rising ordeal kind of made me just, less attracted to the team. But I'm liking Texas Tech. I'm liking the way that Texas Tech is looking. I think that they're going to be I think they kind of sealed for the most part the Big 12. Not really much competition outside of that, other than I believe Iowa State with Retzloff and the boys. It's Retzloff, right? Yeah, with Iowa State and Retzloff and the boys. I think that's going to be an interesting game to watch at the end of the season. The Big 12 championship. Those are definitely going to be the two teams. I mean, there's nobody else that really kind of comes close to Texas Tech and Iowa State, and I believe that those teams are going to be the group of guys that end up coming out of the Big 12, showing or representing the Big 12 in the playoff, and who even knows, making some noise for the boys in the Big 12. Underwood, we got some smaller, less, I would say, less relevant headlines, but obviously when it comes to football, I mean, just about everything's relevant. We've all been tracking Bryce Underwood and the Michigan Wolverines, seeing how they've been playing. They actually escape the Cornhuskers and Dylan Raiola there away, and we've seen flashes of good, flashes of bad. Obviously, we go back to the Oklahoma game that Bryce Underwood played for the Wolverines against the Sooners. They kind of showed some fight in that game. Ended up, obviously losing that game. But obviously, Michigan and Underwood, they're going to be tested even more playing in the division like the Big 12 or the Big 10. Obviously, they have Ohio State at the end of the year. It's going to be, can Bryce Underwood keep the streak going for the Wolverines? Only time will tell. Memphis. And now Memphis's name is unfortunately coming up into conversations also with UNLV. I wouldn't say UNLV as much as Memphis due to the fact that, I'd say when you look at these conferences and kind of how, USF has emerged from the Group of 5 conversation in the same conference as Memphis, you kind of look at it. UNLV is kind of like the lone soul in the Mountain West as another Group of 5 conference. So, currently as you look at it right now, UNLV is the clear kind of team that people are circling to escape the Mountain West. It really just depends on, can they prove to the rest of the world, to the playoff committee, that they deserve a playoff spot. And I believe when it comes to that, I think UNLV is kind of out for the count, really depending on how Memphis and USF play, because, they are two of the other teams that are in the mix. I know Tulane was in the mix now, but they've dropped a couple games, so Tulane is probably out of, I'd say, kind of the talk of it now. Obviously, if they won against Ole Miss, that would be a huge, huge resume builder going into the playoff. But I'm really intrigued to see that a lot of people are kind of putting their money on Memphis to come out of the AAC, despite, especially after beating Arkansas. But, oh, wow, look at this. AAC team beats an SEC team. Well, let's look at it like this. USF, even though they did just get pummeled by Miami, horrible game to watch. They beat Florida. They beat Boise State, both ranked at the time. I know that Florida has kind of declined. Their image has declined over the past few weeks, but I believe it's going to be really. Do I dare say candidate for College Game Day? Memphis, Tennessee. I believe week 7. Week 7, I believe. Memphis and USF. They play about a month out from now. USF obviously traveling to Tennessee to go play the Tigers, and it's going to be a good game to watch. Definitely circle that on your calendars as a playoff-shaking game. Obviously, a lot more playoff-shaking games coming up. Mainly, I think Big Ten, because Big Ten is really kind of making a lot of noise in the top, or in the college football playoff, in the top 10, top 25, and whatnot. But Big Ten's a great conference. But we're going to look ahead. Actually, that's how we're going to develop kind of our theme. We're going to look ahead to Week 5. And before I say anything, listen to any of my fellow men that are tied into a relationship. You have a wedding going on, whether it's yours, it's somebody else's. Whether you have a wedding, whether you have a girlfriend, whether you have a wife, whether you have a family. I want you to cut all that shit off. Divorce papers, get them ready now. I wouldn't say divorce papers. Let's not jump to that conclusion, all right? Listen, guys. All I'm going to say is, if your woman does not respect your Saturday, she needs to go. Because this lineup for the 27th is absolutely incredible. And obviously, you got a girlfriend, anything else, you need to tell them, listen, hubby needs his time, because this is going to be one of the greatest weekends in all of college football. And probably the greatest weekend in college football this year. We had some controversy stirred up just because of the College Game Day, where they're going. Whether it be in Athens, Georgia, whether it be in Happy Valley, whether it would be even, somewhere like, whether it be somewhere like Ole Miss with the LSU game. But let me just describe to you this slate of games that we have. And I'm going to start off with something. I'm going to kind of ease into it. I'm going to edge you guys. You know what I'm saying? First Friday, a game that I don't see a lot of people talking about. TCU at Arizona State. 3-1 Arizona against an undefeated TCU team that's 24th ranked. I'm liking this matchup. Obviously, it's going to be in the Grand Canyon State against Sun Devils. Sun Devils need, obviously, you know, they're kind of still fractured by the loss to Mississippi State. Just came off a win against Baylor. Virginia and FSU, that's probably not going to be a good game at all. Don't care about that game. But FSU's 8th ranked, and we're going to see how they can play against actual competition going into the Miami game. Because, you know, FSU hasn't played jack shit for anybody, right? Now, okay, that's Friday. That's just Friday. You know, I've kind of teased you. But now, let's get really into it. 21 USC, 23 Illinois. Whoever loses this game is getting knocked out of the top 25. That's going to be one of my picks. That's going to be my noon pick. Obviously, you know, Mike's picks. We're going to have our midday pick, obviously, be LSU Ole Miss. But before we go to LSU Ole Miss, we're going to preview that game. We're going to talk about number 22 Notre Dame at Arkansas. Arkansas coming off a Memphis loss. Notre Dame coming off a 1-2 start to the season. Marcus Freeman is being looked at as a potential source of this. CJ Carr, Jeremiah Love, they need to respond. They play Arkansas in Arkansas. Then, number 4 LSU, number 13 Ole Miss. That's going to be my midday pick, my 3:30 pick. Garrett Nussmeier and the guys, obviously coming off a struggling win a couple weeks ago to Florida. I believe they had they played Southeastern Louisiana last week, destroyed them, obviously blew them out of the water. And now Brian Kelly and the guys, they go into Oxford to play Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and the guys. It's going to be a really interesting game to watch. 3:30 game, beautiful. You know, already looking like a lot of great games are going on. Crazy stuff. We already got, by the time we get to the later slate, we already have a lot of drama. Potentially. Probably. And this is just talking about the top 25 ranked games. But now, this is where it gets, like, optimal. I mean, worst case, if you have to do stuff, you have to do shit earlier in Saturday. It is what it is. But if you're telling the wife, you're telling the kids, listen, we're just ordering pizza. Dad is not cooking tonight because at 7:30, not only do we have College Game Days Oregon at number 3 Penn State, Drew Aller, Marcus Freeman against Dan Lanning and Dante Moore, but we have Ty Simpson, Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Williams, and the number 17 Tide traveling to Athens to play Nate Frazier, Gunnar Stockton, Dalen Everett, Kirby Smart, and the Dogs in Athens. And let me just, it's gonna be such an exciting weekend, and then obviously, you know, we're gonna kind of de-escalate. We kind of reached our climax. Now we're gonna kind of go into the, what would you call it, an exposition. And we have 25 BYU at Colorado. That's going to be an interesting game. It's a night game. And we're going to be watching that. If you truly love football, you're going to be watching that game in shock, in awe of whatever the hell goes on in this 7:30 slate. I'm currently... it's going to be interesting to see what my 7:30 game pick is going to be. Whether I should do Oregon, Penn State, or I should do Alabama, Georgia. Personally, to be safer, I'm going to pick... You'll find it out. You'll find it out. But trust me, there's an easier pick. I mean, I kind of already see who I want to pick now. I mean, it's really confident. I'm really liking who I like in these games. I'm not going to tell you right now, but you know, it's going to be obviously crazy good games. Those games are going to shake up the college football playoff. If Alabama somehow beats Georgia in Athens at 7:30 p.m., it has to be a curse. There's no way Ty Simpson owns us. Jalen Milroe also owns the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't know how he does. He's I wouldn't say awful quarterback, but I mean, come on. Last year's team was insane, but it's gonna be such an exciting slate of games. And you know, cancel all your plans, cancel the weddings. Tell your buddy, oh, I'm sorry, I can't be there, dude. There's college football going on. And surely if your buddy cares about you, he would understand. He would cancel his wedding. Be like, oh, I'm sorry. Obviously, the fiance is going to be a little pissed off, oh my God, it's either college football or me. Listen, ho, it's college football, okay? So, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but, you get the point. Pretty much cancel everything. We are going to be professional couch potatoes on Saturday, and going into Sunday, obviously, we're going to do the same thing because, NFL obviously comes on Sundays. Pretty much the weekend is for the peak unemployment times, It would suck if you had to work on the weekends, but let's look into it. We're going to switch gears, kind of go from college football, kind of this heat, this talk of the town. We're going to go into the NFL, obviously, and I'm going to try and cover this in about 5 to 10 minutes, hopefully as quick as I can. We're going to start off injuries. Whew, wow. Holy crap. Injuries. It feels like everybody's getting injured, and it's feeling like it is destroying teams. And we're going to start off with Joe Burrow. Obviously, turf toe a couple weeks ago. Jake Browning came in as his backup. He's kind of been just established as the backup. I'm surprised Jake Browning hasn't been in one of those backup commercials like Tommy DeVito was. But regardless, we had the backup, what we call it, the backup bowl in Minnesota between Carson Wentz and Jake Browning. Obviously, Carson Wentz came out on top and beat the ever-living piss out of the Bengals. That's going to be really, I feel like, the downfall of the Bengals. And I think Joe Burrow is kind of like a what-if now, which is very unfortunate because, everybody loves Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow. Pause. But Joe Burrow, great quarterback, but just riddled with injuries. Got to get this guy an offensive line. They kind of use all their money in the offseason to secure these weapons. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, blah, 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 all this stuff. And they can't protect their quarterback. You need to invest more in protecting the quarterback. And obviously it's shown now. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy. I talked about Carson Wentz. The only reason that Carson Wentz was starting for the Vikings against the Bengals and I wouldn't say it was his individual playing that destroyed the Bengals because he only had 170 throwing yards despite putting 48 points on the board. Obviously, he was taking over for an injured J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy got injured in the Sunday night game against the Atlanta Falcons last week. Nick Bosa's out. I believe it was an ACL as well. ACL, Achilles. I don't know. He's out for the year. Brock Purdy, he had been battling an injury. He missed this week. Mac Jones filled in for him and ended up edging out the win against the Cardinals in Santa Clara. And George Kittle, Brock Purdy, Najee Harris, that is an Achilles. I'm almost 90% sure. He is going to be out for the year. Amarian Hampton, which has already been shown flashes of the next coming of Jesus. He has been playing well. He will fill in for Najee Harris, and I believe he'll fill in maybe even better. Some people are saying that he's kind of in contention for Rookie of the Year, and obviously, honestly, I think my guy, Emeka Egbuka. I don't know how to say his name, but Emeka Egbuka, I believe he's kind of our Rookie of the Year now. I mean, he's been just showing consistent dominance, and especially in a wide receiver core that needs him as much as the Buccaneers do, especially now having Mike Evans out after the Jets game for a few weeks. That's going to be a huge fracture to the team. Obviously, they still have Cade Otton. I believe that this week Chris Godwin actually comes back, which is going to be good for the team to kind of, fill in for Mike Evans, fill in for these injured guys. But injuries are just destroying the league. But it's going to be, we're seeing an emergence of new quarterbacks that are playing at such a high level. Rookies, veterans, guys that have kind of been bouncing back between teams. We can talk about, people like Russell Wilson. He's been playing, I think he's been playing solid. It really just comes down to the coaching, and that's what a lot of people are kind of pointing to because, when we talk about, Giants quarterbacks, we talk about the Giants team as an organization. Kind of two examples of why it comes down to the organization and the team. We talk about Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones literally is leading a 3-0 Colts team that has dominated every team that they have played. And they obviously, we know the story about Saquon. It's been a couple of years since he got traded to the Eagles, or since he went to the Eagles, and obviously literally wins a Super Bowl first year with the Eagles. Giants fans are pissed. Giants fans are even more pissed this year. And then Giants fans probably are going to be even more pissed because Young Hoku is now being signed to the team. A lot of people, I was actually talking to some Falcons fans a couple of days ago. I believe it was right when he got signed to the Giants. A lot of people were saying, oh, watch him kick like fucking 2016, 2017 Matt Bryant. Obviously, if you don't know who Matt Bryant is, he's one of the former kickers for the Atlanta Falcons. His career kind of declined after an injury, but Young Hoku, there's no saving Young Hoku, unfortunately. I mean, it comes down to him. And to talk about kickers, actually, we're gonna talk about Parker Romo, Falcons' new kicker, as we end off the segment. But Buccaneers momentum continues, and then if you're the rare, how do I say this? If you're the rare 3%ers of the NFL fans that cream your jorts over special teams plays, then week number 3 was a special teams phenomenon. We had 3 blocked kicks, and the only team out of the 3 to still somehow lose, they all happen to be like game-sealing, go-ahead, walk-off field goals. The Jets return a field goal that they blocked for a touchdown with still 1 minute and 50 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Obviously, that against the Buccaneers ain't going to do an ounce of shit for you. Buccaneers come back. They march down the field, run the clock down, kick a game-winning field goal. McLaughlin lets the Jets fans know that, that block kick pissed me the hell off, and I own your franchise. The Jets with Tyrod Taylor almost topple the Buccaneers, and Tyrod Taylor, this dude, dude's still in the league. Let's not even get started on Tyrod Taylor, all right? Obviously, the Eagles, Jordan Davis, big man, just completely slaps the shit out of, was it Matt Gay? Oh, it wasn't Gay. Gay's on the Commanders now. Whatever. They return a touchdown. They end up winning that game. That would have been a game-winning field goal for the Rams, but Jordan Davis said, fuck no. You're not winning shit. Go back to L.A., buddy. And they will go back to L.A. to play the Ravens, I want to say. No, the Rams. We'll talk about the Rams in a second. Yeah, no, the Rams, they go back to L.A. They play some high stakes game, I believe against, oh shit, I think it might be the Lions. No, the Lions go to Cleveland. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about it. Yeah, no. And then obviously the third one, Browns block the game-winning field goal for the Packers. They end up recovering the ball with like 50 seconds left. They go down, they score a field goal, upset the Packers, which look like one of the hot teams in the NFL that can win the Super Bowl. Can be up in that contention. It really just comes down to Jordan Love and some of the decisions, some of the way he plays. It's going to be an interesting storyline going deeper into the season. And then, yeah, so, special teams guys, the nerdy losers that, are like, oh my gosh, dude, kickers, the guys that, the soccer players that watch the NFL that are soft pussy shit, basically, they're talking about, I wouldn't say soft. I'm just, someone needs to get me a bar soap today. I'm just talking so much complete smack. But essentially, nobody really cares about special teams. But, when it comes to block field goals, especially in times like this, somebody blocks a field goal earlier on in the game. It's not, it's not, nobody really cares about it. But, now when you look at this, you look at these teams and you're like, okay, well, first off, beginning of the season, we had to worry about the kicking dilemma in the sense that these kickers are making these easy-ass field goals, and their job is to only kick. But it is a very extremely hard job. And now, even with, these threatening defensive lines and these special teams units that can now block your kicks, regardless of if they're pure or not, that stirs up some drama, stirs up some disorientation in the kicker's head. Like, oh my gosh, dude, I'm prime Matt Bryant. I'm prime, Vinatieri. I'm prime, whatnot. And I have to, worry about, like, if I miss this one kick, my job's gone. But yeah. The Chiefs, we're going to go around the league, coming to some of the, higher stakes teams that people expect a lot more out of. Chiefs, they struggled with the Giants. And Jackson Dart gets the house call next week for the Giants. They might be the team that plays the Rams. Dude, I was just looking at the schedule. But Jackson Dart, he gets the house call. He's getting called up. Russell Wilson, no desire to retire. That rhyme, that was beautiful. But regardless, a lot of people are saying, it's Jackson Dart's time. It's Jackson Dart's time. But I'm really liking. I honestly, I kind of liked what I saw. I saw flashes of old Russell Wilson, but it really just comes down to how the team's playing. It comes down to the coaching. Brian Daboll. Not enough fingers are pointed at Brian Daboll, I don't think. But I've seen his name dropped a couple times. But I don't think it's in the sense that they're necessarily bashing him. But the organization is clearly the problem in New York. The Chiefs, they play in Arrowhead against the Ravens that are coming off such a struggling start to their season. I mean, they played what? They played the Bills. They played the Lions. I think their only break was the Browns in week 2. And, I mean, obviously, they came away with a huge win, if I'm not mistaken. But, I mean, to play two of the top teams in the NFL. Obviously, the Chiefs are kind of in a decline right now. They're in a dilemma. They'll still find their way into the playoffs. They'll be like a 9-17 or a 9-8 team, still making the Super Bowl. I don't even know how the hell that shit happens, but it does. Mahomes just works his magic. Chris Collinsworth continues to suck his nuts, but regardless, we are going. I mean, the Ravens, man, they got to catch a damn break, dude. I mean, that Browns game was a break, but then they go right into a home game on Monday night against a tough Lions team, and the Lions unlocked their inner flow state when they they're playing just completely locked in. Jared Goff's locked in, Sonic and Knuckles is locked in, Amon-Ra's locked in. I know you see his freaky ass emote that he busted after a first down. That was very graphic to watch. I might have to. Oh man, I hope they find him a bag for that. That was actually vile to watch. But regardless, the Lions, speaking of the Lions, they play Cleveland in this upcoming week. Expected to beat the piss out of the Flacco boys and the Browns, led by Stefanski. Ravens, they go to Arrowhead, play Patrick Mahomes, play Travis Kelce, and then they play the 13th man and the 12th man. The 12th man being Arrowhead Stadium, the 13th man being Taylor Swift's erupting curse that just surrounds the stadium. But backups are kind of showing this week. Obviously Mac Jones coming in for an injured Brock Purdy, and the 49ers are kind of back to their old 49ers way of the entire team being injured. But Christian McCaffrey, he's still going strong. And, obviously Carson Wentz, Jake Browning, the backup bowl there in Minnesota. And we're gonna kind of end it off with. I'm gonna try and contain myself. I'm gonna see if I can go through this entire Falcons rant without abruptly and demonically cursing at myself, at the team, at really everybody. But the Atlanta Falcons, as you know, kind of by the what I call a thumbnail, they are a dire subject to be talked about as of right now, as being a Falcons fan, unfortunately. And I had my hopes up high. You can look into the previous episodes. I was talking about the Falcons, okay, wow, the boys, they have a defense now. We're gonna win the Super Bowl. Blah 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 blah. This and that. That's all we needed. We needed a pass rush. Offense was fine. Blah blah blah. This and that. But now that the clear issue of defense has been addressed, I think the issues just keep piling up, and it's just so aggravating to be a fan of this freaking team. Obviously Atlanta, they dropped the week 1 game against the Buccaneers on a missed field goal. Probably would have won the game. Not been more. Maybe the game wouldn't have been as gut-wrenching, losing. But they lose off a missed field goal in week 1. Week 2, we kind of see this new challenge emerge in Atlanta, which obviously a lot of people are saying it emerged in Minnesota, but it emerged, I think it was there from week one, and the issue being the offensive coordination and the way that these star-studded players are being used in this scheme with Zach Robinson from LA that are just not cutting it out for the team, and it's clearly not working. And unfortunately, you got to Michael Penix, our star quarterback. He looked like straight manure against the Panthers. I mean, he looked like a scared dog. The defensive line was just of the Panthers getting to him, and it was like check down after check down, all these short passes and whatnot. Zach Robinson, being up in the booth, now being brought down against the Commanders. Hoping to see some improvement from that. I don't really understand where the difference is at with Zach Robinson not being in the booth. Maybe Raheem Morris can bite into his ass when Zach Robinson calls his 50th screenplay of the game, but it's very interesting. This defense still looked all right for the most part. I think it really just comes down to kind of our weak points as injuries. AJ Terrell was out of the game. Obviously, Mike Hughes got pissed on by Emeka Egbuka week one. Got pissed on again defensively, but I think our pass rush, is good. Secondary is just kind of banged up a little bit right now, and we just kind of we got to retain our guys and kind of get back to speed. But regardless, it's looking rough there in Atlanta. And soon it's gonna come. I mean, regardless, I think Zach Robinson, he doesn't fix something soon, but he's gonna be out of Atlanta. He's gonna be on. It's so hard to watch that offense, and obviously it's shaping up to be another bad week because not only do we have to play the Commanders, which I was already thinking we were gonna lose. We play the Bills after that, and then we play the 49ers after the fact. So it's probably going to be if Brock Purdy gets back, then we're cooked. But something's got to be fixed with the offensive scheme. We play. I mean, nobody's really saying it, but we play Marcus Mariota in Atlanta. Marcus Mariota comes back after being the most vulgar, vile quarterback, I think, probably the worst quarterback that we had in the past decade. And he comes back to Atlanta after just completely plundering the Raiders in D.C. And now he comes to Atlanta to play the Falcons, one of his old teams that treated him horribly, but he also played horrid. He played like absolute horseshit. God help us. Please, God help us. The Dirty Birds, not looking good right now. We missed the playoffs this year. I think it's just safe to say we sell the team. We're gonna sell the team to the Canadian League, dude. I mean, we're going to Shanghai. We're getting demoted. We're getting delegated, or not delegated. We're getting downgraded. Essentially, what I'm saying. The Atlanta Falcons. Just pray for us. Pray for the boys. Pray for Atlanta. Pray for A-Town. I'll rep the A till I damn die. You know what I'm saying? But obviously the Braves just got eliminated too from the playoffs, and there wasn't really much hope for that team anyway. I didn't really have much expectations. As not a crazy baseball geek as I am. Obviously, I'm more of a football guy, but Georgia, save us, please. And if Georgia loses to Bama and the Falcons lose to Marcus Mariota, that might be the last you ever hear from me. I might just go very, very rough to, watch that happen. But regardless, we're all for it. We're all for it to see what happens next. Hopefully Michael Penix is the guy. Hopefully the problems can be solved. But despite that, it's Wednesday, which means the college football week, or the football week in general, starts tomorrow. We have Army that plays... Army play Wake Forest tomorrow? I think Wake Forest plays... No, I think Wake Forest plays Georgia Tech. But despite we have Thursday night football, starts the weekend of football. And it's going to be an exciting one, NFL, college football. It's going to be an exciting one. Despite that, this concludes the 8th edition of Mic'd Up Sports. Catch you guys hopefully next Wednesday. It'll be next Wednesday. Catch you guys next Wednesday. Hope everybody has a great day. God bless. chase your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you what to do because they don't know you. And like I said again, hopefully everybody has a fantastic day. It's been real. Peace out, guys.